Good morning, Canada. Welcome back to another episode of Crush Beer. Today is June 18th, 2025, 2026. I don't know. I keep scheduling my live streams wrong. There's twice now that I scheduled my live stream for a year from now. And this live stream was scheduled for tonight, not right now. So my bad. I suck at this. I don't know. Maybe it's my old age. Maybe if you zoom in on my face, I got some gray little beard hairs. I don't know, but I might be losing it, folks. I might be losing it. I don't know what's going on, but we're here. We're here. We're live. I think we're live. Did I go live on the right channel? Am I live on the right live stream? Yeah, we're good. Okay, here we go. People are saying late again. Yeah, my bad. I wrote the wrong time. I wrote the wrong day. I've been writing the wrong year, and I'm always late. What can I say? I relapsed. I started smoking cigarettes again. My bad. I was quitting. I quit for like a week and a bit, and now I've been stressed. Mostly because of the Iran-Israel conflict and the fact that we're literally going to war. Like, actually, I mean, you don't send this amount of military assets to an area for intimidation or for peace talks. You go to do stuff. And so I was smoking cigarettes. I was actually on the phone with Clyde, do something right before this. And I was like, hey, yeah, I need to go. So my bad. My bad. I suck at this. What can I say? What can I say other than thank you for being here? And before we get into it, I do want to encourage everybody, hit the like button. I need it. I desperately need it. I need the morale boost. I'm late. It's the wrong day. It's the wrong year. I need to see that you guys are happy to be here and happy to see me. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn post notifications on. Come on, it's free to do. What are we doing? Why am I even saying this still? Come on, it's all I care about. It's all I care about, folks. Hit the like. All right, we got some stuff to take a look at here. Carney addressed the G7 late last night, closing remarks. You've got Carney must explain why he's restoring diplomatic ties with India, which is interesting because, get this, Modi was at the G7 summit. Prime Minister Modi was at the G7 summit, and everything seemed to be copacetic between Canada, Mark Carney, and India. Only after everything falls apart, or not falls apart, only after the G7 finishes does then Canada start to report on the fact that there is foreign interference between India and Canada. So that's kind of weird. I don't know why Mark Carney didn't actually present that to Modi's face. You know what I'm saying? Like, he waited for everyone to go their own ways. And then after, he's like, hey, yeah, you know that guy that was here? Yeah, foreign interference. What? It's not me saying it. It's actually CTV. So right here on CTV, India is a perpetrator to foreign interference, Canadian intelligence says. Today at 9:30 in the morning, after Modi left, Carney was literally shaking hands with Modi. Carney was right there with Modi. Why did he not say, hey, Modi, just between you and I, have you guys been doing anything? Like, just so you know, we have investigations into this and something will come out. But no, they waited till after the meeting of the G7, after everyone went home. So that's kind of weird, a coward per se. India is a perpetrator of foreign interference, yet they didn't say anything right here when they were taking photos together. So what's up with that? Why is this the same song and dance as what Justin Trudeau did? Trudeau used to go and meet people and everything was fine and dandy. And then immediately afterwards would start talking crap about the people that he just met. He did the same thing with Modi in India. So is this like, did they talk about this when they shook hands? Did they talk about this when they were meeting, or was this some sort of sabotage? I don't know, but let's take a look at the video.
And the G7 summit overall. I'm joined this morning by Robert Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
First of all, this relationship was so fractured. We have an RCMP investigation. We have accused them of foreign interference in 2 elections. What will Canada have to concede in order to fulfill this diplomatic goal of renewed ties and relationship with India?
Well, I don't know what Canada really has to do because from the Canadian perspective, we should be demanding that the Modi government cough up the Indian agents who were responsible for hitmen to kill Hardeep Najjar in 2023. And it's not, India is not just implicated in that murder, it's implicated in other murders and extortion plots. So this is a very, very serious issue. Even on the day of the meeting with Mr. Modi, I got a hold of a CSIS report, annual report, which will actually be released today, that says very bluntly that India remains a persistent foreign interference threat to this country. It tries to influence the South Asian community. It is not adverse to trying to influence politicians or buy off politicians, as well as trying to strong arm tactics against members of the community. So the Prime Minister really does have a need to explain Canadians why he's doing this. I think you and I understand why he's doing this. We're trying to diversify trade away from the United States, and India is a huge market, and that's what he's trying to do. But, you know, it's certainly upset many members of the South Asian community, particularly the Sikh community, who are very upset about this, but also people who are human rights activists.
And those groups in particular, the latter that you mentioned, are concerned of a blind eye being turned to what some of the things you've just mentioned. As an update for everybody, where does the current investigation stand right now?
Well, we really don't know. The RCMP have already charged 4 people. They're holding other investigations. We hear that the security people and the police are talking with Indian authorities about trying to get the culprits behind, the masterminds, if I say, behind this murder and other plots in Canada. But it looks like it's not going anywhere. The Americans also went after the Indians over an attempt to kill an American Canadian in the United States, but that plot was filed by the FBI. So, I mean, I guess the best we may get out of this is a commitment from the Modi government that they will stop this kind of transnational repression, where they use hired people or their own agents to carry out, threats or assassinations in particularly in democratic countries. I think that's the best we're going to hope to get out of this. And I think what you're seeing from Mr. Carney is that he's a practitioner of real politics. Yes, this is a very serious issue, what India has done, but Canada can't ignore the fact for geopolitical reasons and for trade reasons, we have to deal with this country. And certainly that, I think, is probably a relief to the business community, which had been wanting to see relations, as difficult as they were, try to be semi-restored so that we can get back to trying to open up that market for Canadian businesses. This
was a jam-packed summit, complicated further by escalations in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. Overall, Bob, what did Canada achieve? Where does this land us globally as we look to make new security?
Okay, so before we pivot on to the next point, I want to say something. If Canada is trying to expand trade outside of just America and tapping into the Indian market, then why are we still continuing these investigations into the India Hardeep Singh Najjar thing? Like, to me, that doesn't make any sense. If you're trying to do trade with a country that you're saying has infiltrated our country, and the government or a third party successfully pulled off this assassination, then wouldn't that ruin chances of expanding trade with that country, with India? It seems kind of weird. And I feel like this is something that should have been discussed maybe privately between Mark Carney and Modi. But for this to hit the press the moment the G7 is done, saying, yeah, these guys that we're trying to make money with and trade, yeah, they killed someone in Canada illegally. Why? What's going on? I mean, is this smoke and mirrors? Is this to stir up domestic turmoil and hatred towards the country of India, which they're trying to expand trade with? Like, I'm not understanding the tactic behind this. It just seems weird. Maybe I'm an idiot. I probably am. Well, I definitely am an idiot, but to me, this doesn't make any sense.
Security and trade relationships. Where are we sitting?
Well, look, I think Prime Minister Carney, and I've been on a lot of these kind of summits, he handled himself very well. You could see the leaders had a great deal of respect for him. I mean, he's...
Well, except for this freeze frame right here, where at the beginning, reporters were only trying to speak to President of the United States, Donald Trump, and Mark Carney had to step in and say, excuse me, but as the chair of the G7, I say that we move on. So that was kind of weird. That was kind of funny. That was actually very funny. And that was probably the most humiliating moment that I've seen out of any prime minister. That was more humiliating than what Justin Trudeau had experienced. Because at least with Trudeau, whenever he'd get called a governor, he would like attempt to clap back. But what happened here, there was no clapbacks. Trump hijacked, not on his own. Like, reporters are the ones that were fueling this, right? The fueling the hijack. Reporters only wanted to speak to the president, and I don't blame them, because let's be honest, I personally only really wanted to hear Donald Trump speak. I didn't really care what Mark Carney had to say, or Macron, or whoever else was there. If I'm being totally honest, it didn't matter at all. Here in this part of the world, in most parts of the world, if you have an option between hearing your own leader or the president talk, chances are you're going to want to hear the president talk and what he has to say, because it's just more impactful. And the way that Carney got kind of usurped out of that position, right? And then Trump had to tap him on the elbow. It's okay, buddy. You can take control. You're the captain, of course. And then winks to him, right? Humiliating.
He's a serious guy. These G7 summits are not, all summits really are not moments where you're going to get major deals. But the fact of the matter is that they...
Well, that is actually not factual, because major deals did happen. Canada and UK, I believe, had a pretty big deal. Trump did say that a big deal between Canada and America will come forward in the next 30 days, all because of the G7. So again, unless I'm missing something, big deals do come forward when people like this, when world leaders meet in person rather than communicating through the back end channels like phone calls from office to office or social media posts. But deals don't get made on out in the public on social media posts, but interactions might occur potentially. So no, big deals do come out of the G7 or the G20, whatever the hell this was. There weren't just 7 countries that were there. Some of the photos that came from after when Trump left, there was like 20 people there. So is it really the G7, or is it turning into something else?
From Canada's perspective, the most important thing, and actually, is that he got along with President Trump. Even though the president left earlier, there wasn't any kind of a blow up that we saw in 2018 when he went after Prime Minister Trudeau. Mr. Carney's whole goal is to try to keep the president on side, because we have hugely important negotiations in the next 30 days to reach a trade deal. The leaders agreed they condemned Iran. They made agreements on critical minerals, on transnational repression, on AI, and those kinds of things. But these are just an opportunity, really, for the world, the democratic leaders of the world, to get together and talk about issues and to form issues that are of significant importance to the world, but also to bond amongst themselves, so that, when a crisis happens, they can pick up the phone and they know the person personally, and sometimes personal relations can make a big difference.
Does it matter that President Trump, one of the key figures in those diplomatic relations you were talking about, bounced early?
Probably from the view of Prime Minister Carney and the other leaders, it was probably a good thing, because yesterday was a day that would have probably set him off, because they were talking about Ukraine and Russia. They were also talking about Iran. But he's all over the map when it comes to Ukraine, and you could see him, and President Zelensky was there as well. So you could see him potentially flying off the handle and causing a big disturbance there. So I think they were probably...
No, I don't believe that at all. He has more pressing matters to attend. When you look at the grand scheme of things, the world police, it's not NATO, it's not the EU, it's America, the USA. The leader of the free world, the leader of the world right now is President Trump. Whether you'd like to hear that or not, that's the fact, is the United States dominates the world. Military, trade, everything. And the president staying at first of all, he's always left a G7 meeting early. In this case, he's deploying more military than what everyone at the G7 has. So everything that President Trump has deployed to the Middle East is probably a little bit more than, well, it's definitely more than what Canada has. If he had to deploy all of Canada's military, it would be like half of what he's already put forward in and around Iran in the past 24 hours. So that speaks volume. So no, I'm sorry that the president left early and wasn't able to have wine and grapes with the rest of you guys, but he's got more pressing matters to attend. All right. There's some nuclear stuff going on, some stuff that shouldn't be going on, but it is going on. And we're going to have to wait and see how this plays out in the next 24, 40 hours. We're going to have more answers or be surprised to all hell. But no, I don't think that he certainly didn't leave because of anybody who was at the G7. Has nothing to do with that. And if Trump were to have met Zelensky again, I don't think he would have flown off the rails. Absolutely not. The president of the United States, since I'm blowing so much smoke up his ass, he was more patriotic for Canada than any other person, any other leader that was there at the G7, including Carney. He wore a pin that symbolizes America and Canada together. He wore a half American, half Canadian pin. It was beautiful. I don't think that any other leader wore a half their country, half Canadian pin. That speaks volume. A pin, something as simple as a pin, makes that big of a difference. The thought matters. And Trump just, aesthetically outplayed everybody.
Probably happy to see him go, although nobody will ever say that publicly.
That's why we have you here. Bob Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail.
I don't know, man. I think the president had some more pressing matters, but that's my opinion. I would love to know your guys' opinion. Next up, we're going to take a look at Mark Carney's, I think, closing remarks at the G7. Here we go.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your coverage. Thanks for you at home. As I said, I guess yesterday morning, reminded that it was 50 years ago that the G7, or the advanced nations, leading advanced nations that became the G7, got together amidst economic upheaval, stagflation, conflict in the Middle East. Sounds familiar. And they formed what became the G7 with a mission, and when they met in Rambouillet, France, it wasn't a mission to preserve the old order, but to build a new one, one that could withstand shocks, deepen integration and cooperation, and really deliver prosperity for all citizens. And it's a reminder that nostalgia isn't a strategy. We have to change. And at this moment of transformation, we must turn the many challenges into change. We know there can't be security without economic prosperity, no true security without economic prosperity, but also no prosperity without resilience. We're in a world where shocks are flowing across borders, whether it's through climate change, whether it's through conflict, and we know that resilience is built through a combination of tough choices at home and smart cooperation with like-minded countries abroad. And that, in a small way, but building from that, is part of the objective of these meetings. This G7 is to begin to build that new era of cooperation, one that promotes long-term resilience over short-term efficiency. Now, le progrès réalisé à Kananaskis.
Okay, we're going to skip through the French stuff. That's okay.
Leaders.
Over the past few days, Canada has worked with our G7 partners to determine where we can cooperate, build resilience and lasting prosperity. And that's the approach that Canada is taking as we negotiate a new economic and security partnership with the United States. And as I've stressed repeatedly, we will take all the time necessary to do that, but no more. And yesterday, President Trump and I agreed to continue to pursue those negotiations, intensify them towards a deal within the coming 30 days. And so the President and I, as well as our respective cabinet ministers and officials, will remain in close contact in the coming days to deliver on that timeline. Over the past days, also met with global leaders who will help determine what is success in the new global system that will emerge over time. And underpinning each of those discussions was, I stress, Canada's readiness to work to create new international partnerships to promote a world that's more secure, prosperous, just, and free. We're looking to deepen alliances with stable democracies who share our interests, our values, our principles, and who look to lead. We look to lead with many of the resources, including human resources and human capital, that the world wants and the values to which so many aspire. And it's those values of freedom, of democracy, and of justice that are behind Canada's unwavering support for a secure, a free and sovereign Ukraine. And this morning, I shared with President Zelensky and G7 partners what Canada is doing moving forward in multiple respects with measures to support Ukraine in its struggle in Russia's unjustified and barbaric war. With our international partners, we're launching a major new package of sanctions on individuals, on companies, on vessels, the Shadow Fleet, to exert maximum pressure on Russia. We're also sending over $2 billion in funding for drones, ammunition, armored vehicles to help Ukrainians defend their territory, as well as a $2.3 billion loan to help rebuild the infrastructure in that country. And take a moment to reiterate our condolences given the barbarism witnessed overnight in Kyiv caused by Russia. G7 leaders also reiterated our commitment to the pursuit of peace and stability in the Middle East. Made clear that Iran is the principal source of regional instability and terror. And we've been consistently clear that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. We urge that the resolution of the Iranian crisis leads to a broader de-escalation of hostilities, including a ceasefire in Gaza.
Okay. He lost me on the ceasefire part, but whatever. Diplomacy. I actually like the fact that he's reiterating what the President of the United States has been saying. Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, nuclear technology, aside from nuclear energy for the population, but that doesn't involve uranium. Once you start bringing in different components, it's no longer for energy, it's for kaboom. That is good to know that at least Canada is on the same page with the United States, because I've been posting content kind of recently about this, about the conflict, and how I believe that if America does proceed with doing something in the Middle East, which it seems like they are, Trump has deployed a lot of resources, the most amount of resources to the Middle East that we've seen in a very long time. That's not for negotiations. That's not for talks. That's because he obviously knows something that the rest of us don't know, even though Tulsi Gabbard swore under oath that Iran was years away from building a nuclear weapon. Obviously, he knows something that we don't. So the fact that our prime minister is on board with that, I mean, there's different takes. People are saying, I don't want to fight Israel's war, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't think it's Israel's war. It's about a Middle Eastern country having nuclear equipment that they are not allowed to have. If that happens, America's going to go to war, which it does seem like that's going to happen. And Canada will also be a player in this. So that's kind of good that we're on the same page as America. And I think this is the precursor right now. What he's doing right now is he's already trying to start to program people to realize that we are about to go to war. That's the messaging that I'm understanding. I'm reading between the lines. I'm seeing where this is going. And Canada is preparing to go to war. So that is what it is. Agree or disagree with that? There's certain countries that are just not allowed nuclear weapons. That's a fact.
Tout au long de ce sommet, nous avons...
Okay, yeah, we'll skip through the French again.
I'm pleased to share that G7 nations in the past 2 days agreed to move forward in cooperation on several key priorities. We're going to work with our partners in the G7 and beyond, a number of the countries are here today, to develop critical metals and minerals in order to build independence from non-market economies. And to that end, we will create a critical minerals production alliance, a G7-led strategic initiative to stockpile and develop critical minerals needed for defense and technology, including a range from germanium, gallium, graphite, rare earths. We also struck several agreements, accords from the aforementioned critical mineral supply chains to adapting, powering, and sharing artificial intelligence, to collaborating on quantum technologies, to preventing, fighting and recovering from wildfires, something we feel intensely, obviously, here in the prairies, tackling foreign interference and transnational repression, countering migrant smuggling by dismantling transnational organized crime. Next week, we will shift from addressing threats to economic security to addressing threats and addressing issues with respect to global defense and security at the NATO summit and at the Canada-EU summit. We recognize that our leadership will be defined not just by the strength of our values, but the value of our strength. And with that, why don't I take the opportunity?
There you go. There you go. Okay, Canada's getting ready for war. That explains why Prime Minister Mark Carney has been putting in so much money, or committing so much money in his first months, basically, to our defense. That makes sense. It all checks out. I'm understanding it now. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Are you on board with Canada joining America in this fight against evil, or are you against it? Let me know your guys' thoughts. Just to add on to that, though, I think that if Canada does actually participate in the war, as patriots, we owe it to ourselves to remain patriotic, to defend our sovereignty, and to promote the fact that Western society must stay Western. And there's a big push and pull happening in the world right now. And I've said this before, you can go back and you can quote me or whatever, but I do believe that in the next 50 to 100 years, you're going to see two outcomes. The world will either be more Western than what it is now, so American dominance, or Sharia law. So do you, your kids, or your grandkids want to live under Western values, or do you want to live under Sharia law? Keep that in mind. Keep that very much in mind. For me, the answer is clear. Western dominance. So there you go. I've said it. Anyways, now we're going to shift to question period. But before we get into it, folks, I want to encourage you guys. Come on, man. Come on. I'm fishing for those likes. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Come on. What are you doing? Let's get into question period, shall we? Let's get it going. They're just about done. Statements by members. Here we go.
McKinsey. So sure, more faith in the government that promised a 2% spending cap increase, and yet is increasing it by 8%. If the Liberals continue this way and don't present a budget till spring, it'll be at least a year since the last budget, the longest period since the 60s outside of COVID. Canada needs a budget now to control inflation, reduce deficit, and stop tax hikes, and reverse the lost decade of Liberal failure.
Here. The honourable member for Vancouver Granville.
It's an honour to rise in this House as a re-elected member of Parliament for Vancouver Granville. I want to thank my constituents for placing your trust in me once more. Your ideas and determination inspire me every day. I want to thank the hundreds of volunteers that supported me and my family who give so much to allow me to serve. From Kitts Point to South Van, from Shaughnessy to Main Street, from South Cambie to Granville Island, I'm here to make sure that our community's priorities, affordable housing, better healthcare, a stronger, more innovative economy, and safer streets are top of mind. Now is the time to ensure that all Canadians' ideas and ambitions become reality. To my constituents, I carry your stories with me into every conversation and every decision I make in this place. You've placed your trust in me to be your voice in Ottawa, and I don't take that responsibility lightly. I will keep working hard to make sure that you're heard and you're well represented. This work is about you, and I'm here to fight for what matters most for our community. Let's build Canada strong together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions.
Oral questions. Honourable Andrew Scheer.
This Liberal government is doubling down on its insane ban on gas-powered vehicles. The latest Liberal overreach kicks in next year, and soon your favorite car, truck, and van will be illegal. But this mandate is already driving up prices. The average price of a new car is $67,000. Used cars are approaching $40,000, and this Liberal mandate will add an additional $20,000 per vehicle. They've already priced working Canadians out of the housing market. Why are they pricing working Canadians out of the ability to buy a vehicle as well?
Yeah. You can't ban gas-powered vehicles.
Speaker, first let's start with the facts, which is there is no ban on gas-powered vehicles.
By 2030 or 2035, yeah, there is.
Let's also say, once again, we're seeing the Conservatives talking down one of our most important industries, employing hard-working auto workers in our country at the very moment that we're facing terrorist threats from the United States. I find it rich that they are choosing to take this position instead of talking up a growing and important industry. We stand with our auto workers.
So what happens when the tariffs get removed?
There absolutely is a ban. It starts to come into effect next year, and it will absolutely devastate the auto sector here in Canada. The auto sector is already under fire from unjustified U.S. tariffs and the PM's inability to get a deal, but GM, Ford are all saying that this ban will kill jobs. In fact, a new report says that this ban on gas-powered vehicles will kill 90,000 auto jobs. Wow. Instead of sending even more jobs to the U.S., why not end the ban on gas-powered vehicles and let Canadians decide what kind of vehicle they want to buy?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, it's nice to hear that they're finally recognizing that we're talking about an industry that's facing unjustified tariffs from the United States. Right. But let's also talk about how our auto sector is important. We need to support it in this moment. It's creating good-paying union jobs in our country. An EV standard actually makes sure that new electric vehicles are available to Canadians. They're cheaper to operate, they're cheaper on upkeep, and Canadians want to be able to have access.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
You don't have to allow Canadians to buy one type of vehicle by banning their ability to buy the ones that they actually want. You know, this is raising a lot of questions. Canadians, auto workers, Ford, GM, they all don't want the EV mandate, but the Prime Minister is intent on pushing it through. Why? Well, right before becoming Prime Minister, he was chair of Brookfield, and he advocated for a ban on gas-powered cars. Brookfield is heavily invested in the EV supply chain, yet this Prime Minister refuses to reveal his financial interests or self-admitted conflicts. Isn't it true that this isn't about the environment, this is about the bottom line for Brookfield?
The Honourable Minister for Artificial Intelligence.
We're in a trade war launched by the United United States that's targeting our auto workers and our auto sector. Make no mistake, we will fight for every job and every worker. We have invested in the auto sector, including the EV sector, to build good jobs in places like St. Thomas, where the Amino Corp is employing people. This government will always invest in workers and make sure that the auto industry is growing, resilient, and successful.
The honourable member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, every time this Liberal government proposes new environmental measures, it's either a tax or a requirement. They want to ban the sale of gas-powered vehicles, which will cost Canadians 50,000 jobs. They want to punish Quebecers who choose a gas-powered vehicle by imposing a $20,000 price hike, even though they know the average price of a new car is already $67,000. Why does the Prime Minister want to take away Canadians' choice? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, let's begin by saying we're not banning those vehicles. Secondly, in Quebec, in his riding, there are already regulations to ensure that Quebecers have access to EVs. So even in his riding, there are already regulations in place. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. I'd like to tell the minister that in Quebec, people are already saying this won't work. Banning gas-powered cars after 2035 won't work. It's a question of choice, not control. What we're seeing is the Liberal government trying to control Canadians, but many people can't afford or can't use or simply don't want an EV. Tell someone in northern Quebec who wants to go hunting or fishing or into the woods, how are they supposed to do that with an EV? It's impossible. So forcing Canadians is not the right way to go. The Honourable Environment Minister. Mr. Speaker, once again, we are not requiring people to buy EVs, and we are not banning combustion engine vehicles. But EVs are less expensive. They're to buy and to maintain, and Canadians want access to EVs. So why do they not want Canadians to have that choice? The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, that government has already tried to control Canadians' lives through the carbon tax for years. What has the new Prime Minister done? He scrapped the carbon tax because he knew it wasn't working. We're asking for the same thing here. Stop forcing Canadians to buy EVs. They want gas-powered vehicles. They want the choice because gas cars work for them. And once again, the Liberals are making it too expensive for people to afford things because of their ideology. The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
If
Mr.
it was
Speaker,
really
this
about
is
switching to
absurd.
EVs and
It's
why
whatever,
in BC
anything
have they
and
banned
everything
Teslas
that we're hearing from the other side. Once again,
EV
we are going to help our auto industry workers.
Specifically ban Teslas.
If the Conservatives,
you know what I'm saying? That's kind of weird.
Don't want, if they're saying that our cars are not good enough, that's their choice. But on this side of the House, we will defend our auto industry. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the theme of the election campaign was a terrible crisis, a trade war, and a tariff war. And the next day, poof, we hear nothing more about it. The Prime Minister was supposed to meet President Trump in Washington, and all he came back with was nothing much. And yet significant concessions have been made around tariffs and the border and defense. And then the Prime Minister has come back from the G7 empty-handed. Are workers supposed to be satisfied with a 30-day wait-and-see period? The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs and U.S.-Canada relations. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and the U.S. President had a meeting that was constructive in Kananaskis. In connection with the G7, they discussed a number of topics. Obviously, the priority for us was to talk directly with Trump on tariffs, And precisely as my colleague just indicated, the impact on the economy and workers in Canada, we wanted to discuss that. And also the impact on the U.S., on their economy and their workers. And we needed to point out why this was harmful to the U.S. itself. And I'm convinced we made progress, but we won't stop until it's done. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, we're not out of the woods yet. While the government was preoccupied with the G7, there's been time allocation here. No, there's no debate. Nothing's happening with the trade war. All we're talking about here is oil. But C5 has nothing to do with trade, nothing to do with tariffs in the foreseeable future. Will the government, have the government and the Prime Minister got their priorities in the wrong place? The Honourable Minister of Canada-U.S. Relations. Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, this bill, the purpose of it is specifically to counter the tariff, the threat of the tariffs and the threat to our economy. During the election campaign, the Prime Minister was crystal clear. We are going to build major projects in Canada. We're going to do it the right way, respecting environmental standards in partnership with First Nations and the provinces and territories. I know our Bloc friend is perhaps not happy to see us working with the provinces and territories to do great things in Canada, but that's exactly what we're going to do. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. We need to stop starting our sentences that way. C5 will have no positive impact on the Canadian economy, but it will have a huge impact on the public purse. It will have no impact on the trade war, no impact on the tariffs, and no impact on Canadian output. Can people stop taking Canadians for fools and admit that C5 is the Prime Minister's business plan and that it runs counter to the interests of Quebec workers? The Honourable Minister of Transport and Internal Domestic Trade. Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of respect for my colleague from the Bloc, but I can't agree with the idea that C5 will not assist the Canadian economy. Experts who've studied the impact of free trade within Canada have found that this will add $200 billion to the Canadian economy, and that our GDP will increase by 2% and 4%. That's a huge impact, Mr. Speaker.
Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, in Saskatoon, winter temperatures often hit minus 30 degrees, so families need vehicles that actually work in the winter. But this Prime Minister, backed by his radical Environment Minister, is doubling down on Justin Trudeau's plan to ban gas-powered cars and force Canadians to buy expensive EVs that don't stand up to the cold. His plan will hike car prices by $20,000 and leave families stranded. It's out of touch, it's unaffordable, and it's anti-choice. Will the Prime Minister stop punishing Canadians for living in a cold country and repeal his unscientific, job-killing electric vehicle mandate now?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
We're in a trade war launched by the U.S. As we know, the auto sector is already under attack. Let's hope that my colleagues join us in not attacking the auto sector, but in supporting jobs across the auto sector in all forms and making sure that our communities remain strong in that industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
That's exactly what this government is doing. It's attacking the auto sector. Our supposedly elbows-up Prime Minister promised to get tough with the U.S., but these unjustified tariffs will kill 50,000 Canadian auto sector jobs. And while he's bungling the trade talks, his self-imposed ban on gas-powered cars will gut another 40,000 jobs. The combination of these two failures will be disastrous for our auto industry. That's 90,000 jobs gone. Poof. Will the Prime Minister admit his failures are killing our auto sector and instead, finally, stand up for 90,000 Canadian jobs?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this line of questioning is somewhat absurd. Whether you want to get on a skidoo, whether you want to get on an all-terrain vehicle, whether you want to gas up your F-150, whether the plumber wants to take the truck to work, that is that person's choice in this country. There is no ban on
says 2/3 of Canadians disagree with the disastrous Liberal plan for the ban of sale of new gas-powered vehicles by 2035. The EV mandate will eliminate 38,000 jobs and cost $138.7 billion. U.S. tariffs could mean 1,000 more jobs lost. Prices will go up by $20,000 per vehicle. Canadian jobs will vanish. When will the Liberals repeal their EV mandate?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'm having trouble understanding the actual line of questioning from the opposition. They're trying to imply.
Again, I couldn't hear. I couldn't hear, and it's important that I be able to hear the conversation. The Honourable Government House Leader from the top, if you wish.
Mr. Speaker, I know that Member of Parliament. He knows there's no ban on gas-powered vehicles. He knows that we'll invite him to the riding. We'll go out on a skidoo ride when the winter comes. The fact is that Canadians have choice. We'll continue to have choice. In the meantime, we're going to power a new industry, putting Canadian auto workers, unifor workers, unionized men and women to work building all kinds of vehicles.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton-Griesbach.
I believe it's on the website. Now, it's not a surprise to Albertans that Liberals think gas and diesel are pure evil. Why else would they be sticking with Justin Trudeau's EV mandates? EV sales are sagging. Auto manufacturers are dead set against these mandates. Mr. Speaker, this Liberal idea is a real clunker. And it's an affront to free choice. So, will the Prime Minister reverse this reckless policy and let Canadians buy the vehicles they actually want to buy?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Yeah, mandating vehicles
When I go down to the
Canada
street corner near my house, they have this thing called a pump. The pump offers various choices of grades of gasoline, and for the honourable member's benefit, there's a yellow one that says diesel. So if you happen to have a diesel engine, you stick the pump into that one, into your vehicle, and you know what? You have a choice. You run your diesel truck or you run your diesel car. That's all good, Mr. Speaker. Canadians have the choice. Let's drive on.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South, Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, contrary to that member's remarks, I'm reading Canada's Electric Vehicle Availability Standard regulated targets for zero-emission vehicles on my phone right now. It's on their website. They are regulating this. They are mandating this while Canadians are not choosing to buy EVs. EV sales are down 45% in our country right now. And that's okay. Living in a liberal democracy means different people make different choices for their families based on their different needs as they see fit. Why won't the Liberals respect the right of Canadians to choose the vehicle that serves their family best?
Hey. Looks like you wanted to say more, but
I have a question for the Conservatives. Why in this moment, when we are facing unjustified tariffs from the United States, are they talking down a climate competitive industry that's right here in our country? In fact, globally, if they looked at the reports, including the International Energy Agency's reports, global rates for the purchase of EVs are going up. So this is a growing sector. I hope that they will support it, because we do.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Bloc and Liberals voted against our motion to repeal the ban on gas-powered vehicles. They want to force their lifestyle on everyone without being aware of the reality. This ban would directly penalize regions like mine and many others. In the Saguenay, it's cold. There's not much public transportation compared to major cities. We need our gas-powered vehicles. Why does the Prime Minister want to dictate Canadians what kind of vehicle they have to buy? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, I recognize my honourable colleague. He was a coach of a hockey team in the I think he's breathed in the air of a Zamboni. And a Zamboni, there are gas-powered ones, and there are natural gas-powered ones, and there are electric Zamboni. Gas-powered cars will increase the price by $20,000. Saguenay residents need the freedom to choose the vehicle that meets their needs at an affordable price, and they can't be forced to drive an EV. We need our gas-powered pickup trucks to go into the woods and work, and we want to be sure we can get home at night. Will the Liberals in the Bloc keep undermining our regions? The Honourable Government House Leader. Not only, Mr. Speaker, will we not undermine our regions, we will build our regions. We will build regions like Bécancour, where the auto industry has now expanded and we're electrifying transportation.
Colleagues across the way, there's a guy in Queen's Park. His name is Doug Ford. He supports electric vehicles. He supports an automobile industry in Ontario and across Canada. I suggest maybe they give Doug Ford a call, see what he thinks about EVs.
Doug Ford also supports. Hold on a second. Hold on, we gotta pause it. I know people don't like it when I pause. I know people don't like it, but Doug Ford also almost got robbed by 4 masked men and now supports protecting your property. Okay, so you want to talk about Doug Ford? He's now shifting. So who knows?
Mirabel.
That's so funny.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals and the Conservatives all voted to make Quebecers pay $814 million in fake carbon rebate checks to Canadians. This was confirmed by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, who said the funds would clearly come from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. What's worse, Quebecers will have to keep paying. As the PBO said, it's clear that we're paying interest on this because in a deficit situation, every additional expenditure results in additional borrowing. Mr. Speaker, why are the Liberals and the Conservatives stealing from Quebecers? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, it's very, very simple. Quebec did not participate in the carbon tax for consumers. The rebate is for, it's an adjustment for communities and provinces that did have the carbon tax for consumers. Quebec was not a part of that, and so the rebate doesn't apply to them. The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, people sometimes ask, what good is the Bloc Québécois? Well, at the very least, it's good to have members of Parliament who don't steal $814 million from Quebecers so they can cut checks to Canadians. There are now 44 Liberals from Quebec, all of whom voted to steal from Quebecers. Just like the 11 Conservatives from Quebec, they all rejected the National Assembly's unanimous demand to pay the money back to Quebec. Clearly, they don't stand up for Quebecers. So the real question is not what good is the Bloc. It's more like the Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, it's very simple. The the carbon tax did not apply in Quebec, and so the rebate didn't apply either. It's quite simple.
Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
The CMHC released May's housing starts, and predictably for this government, the outlook is not good. In Belleville, starts are down over 50 points, and in Toronto, nearly 60%. This minister's staggering ignorance of the plight of everyday Canadians is not surprising when you remember that he's not only stuck up in his ivory tower here in Ottawa, but sitting on a massive $10 million real estate portfolio.
Shame.
Mr. Speaker, why is this housing minister telling young Canadians that home prices don't need to go down? Is he unable or unwilling?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we are well aware of the challenges Canadians have with housing affordability. That's why they elected us to represent them and drive the pace of housing construction in Canada. That's what we will do. That's what we will deliver. We've already delivered on the GST break for first-time home buyers. We're going to take it farther and faster. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Tell that to the young Canadians that cannot afford a home, Mr. Speaker. For a decade, this Liberal government has continuously failed to address housing crisis with solutions. To add insult to injury, they've appointed a minister who has a significant interest in seeing housing prices soaring sky high.
Yep.
Mr. Speaker, this housing minister is actually part of the problem.
That's
Mr.
right.
Speaker, how can Canadians actually trust a government that cannot lower housing costs,
for Sport.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians remember when Pierre Poilievre stood in front of a woman's house, a Canadian women's house in Niagara Falls and called it a shack. I remember when Pierre Poilievre stood in this house and called the co-op where I grew up Soviet-style housing. Now, if that wasn't enough, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are stigmatizing modern, modular, affordable housing as shipping containers. Mr. Speaker, these Conservatives have voted against every single measure to support lower-income families to be able to access affordable housing. And, Mr. Speaker, it's people like me that grew up in the type of housing that those Conservatives want to insult. That's pretty ironic, given that despite not getting re-elected, Mr. Speaker, Pierre Poilievre continues to live in taxpayer-funded government housing.
What do you do? What do you do? What do you say?
The honourable member for Calgary.
Stay on the chin.
Mr. Speaker, under the Liberals, we've become a country with two kinds of families, those that already own real estate and those that likely never will. But media reports that the housing minister owns real estate worth millions of dollars while he tells Canadians who can't afford a home that prices must not fall. Will this minister and former mayor of one of the most unaffordable places on earth admit that his government spent a decade driving up housing prices and apologize to Canadians for crushing their dreams of home ownership?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this minister has stood up and articulated and represents policies that we debated in an election campaign that will create hundreds of thousands of new homes for Canadians. In the meantime, he will, of course, be in compliance with the very strict ethics code and regulations that we all live under in this House of Commons, and doubting the contrary is frankly unseemly on the part of the member.
The honourable member for Calgary-Crowfoot.
Well, Mr. Speaker, after 10 years of driving prices up, housing supply has never been worse. According to CMHC, housing starts are down 10% in Vancouver, down 58% in Toronto, down 51% in Hamilton, and down 71% in London. And all these cities receive funding under the Liberals' so-called Housing Accelerator Fund, and their housing starts are falling. Why is this minister protecting real estate investors instead of giving hope to millions of Canadians locked out of home ownership by this government?
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the member needs to check the facts. The housing starts across Canada are up almost 280,000 pace this year, which is almost record level. Mr. Speaker, we've been building at strong pace this year and last. We're seeing unprecedented levels of rental housing being constructed for the first time in decades. Yep. This government is delivering, and we will take it farther. We will double the rate. Thank you.
The honourable member for Battleford's Lloydminster Middle.
Mr. Speaker, the housing minister is part of the problem. He said that housing prices do not need to come down. And now we know why. He has $10 million real estate portfolio, including 3, not 1, 2, but 3 luxury properties. Housing costs have doubled under these Liberals, putting home ownership out of reach for more and more Canadians. How can he sit in his Vancouver penthouse and tell young Canadians that are priced out of the market that prices don't need to come down?
Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. There's an old saying about people in glass houses. Well, a lot of those Conservative members also have quite a few investment properties. They rent out their units, Mr. Speaker. But another thing, Mr. Speaker, I just want to reiterate that their leader, Pierre Poilievre, didn't get re-elected, and he continues to live in taxpayer-funded government housing. What's clear, Mr. Speaker, is anytime those Conservatives have an opportunity to support lower-income or vulnerable families and their access to truly affordable housing, they vote against every single measure.
The honourable member for Pickering, Brooklyn.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this month, I had the pleasure of attending the Seniors Month celebration in my riding of Pickering, Brooklyn. This event brought together dozens of local seniors for an afternoon filled with live music, dancing, light refreshments, and the presentation of Senior of the Year award. It was a vibrant testament to the vital role seniors play in enriching our community. Seniors are the backbone of our town, serving as volunteers, caregivers, and lifelong contributors. So I asked Mr. Speaker to the Secretary of State for Seniors, what is our government doing to ensure seniors, especially those on fixed income, can age with dignity, security in communities like mine and across?
The Secretary of State for Seniors.
The honourable member for her advocacy. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to ensuring that seniors can age with dignity. We have introduced several initiatives that are making a real difference in the lives of seniors. We have provided an OAS increase of 10%, increased the guaranteed income supplement for low-income seniors, made dental care available to seniors age 65 and older, and invested in projects under the New Horizons program. We will continue to work with provinces, municipalities, and community partners to ensure that every senior from Pickering to Vancouver Island has what they need to thrive.
The honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson-Nicola.
5 to 7 grains of salt, 0.2 milligrams. That's how much fentanyl it takes to kill somebody. So, Mr. Speaker, it's no surprise that Canadians would be shocked when somebody who had 24 grams of fentanyl, enough to kill thousands of people, was sentenced to house arrest. Who do I blame? Again, not the judge, not the prosecutor, not the defense lawyer. I blame these Liberals for their lack of action, for passing Bill C-5. So when will they finally legislate so that people who traffic fentanyl can serve their sentence on the couch?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear the fentanyl crisis is responsible for the taking of innocent lives in this country. It's incumbent upon all members of this House to approach this with empathy, but also with a level of seriousness can prevent fentanyl from sweeping through the nation, causing such damage. Going forward, we are going to be implementing a series of reforms that will target violent offenders, repeat offenders, and organized crime, which was responsible for the preponderance of fentanyl in this country. I hope that we can work across the aisle on this important issue to help keep Canadians safe and protect our communities.
Member for Kamloops, Thompson-Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, that all sounds great. Unfortunately, that minister voted for Bill C-5 that took away mandatory minimums for people serving their sentence for fentanyl trafficking, for gun trafficking, for extortion with a firearm. Fentanyl is killing people, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers. So will that minister look into this camera, Mr. Speaker, and tell people whose children are victims, people who have died from fentanyl, will he look into that camera and tell them that he will legislate to end this insanity?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, it's essential that we approach this level with the seriousness with which it deserves, including respect for decisions that have come from courts in this country. As we move forward, we're going to work in a manner that will ensure serious crimes will be treated seriously and serious offenders will be punished seriously. Mr. Speaker, I hope we can avoid turning something as serious as the fentanyl crisis into a partisan issue for political gain and instead work to advance measures in a collaborative manner to help protect Canadians, their families, and communities in every region of this country.
Honourable member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
A worker at a so-called safe injection site in Toronto helped someone literally try to get away with murder. Her sentence was a house arrest sentence with educational programming and daily trips to the gym. Par for the course from these lawless Liberals who care more about criminals than victims and think bail should be as easy to get as free drugs. So when will these Liberals stop ignoring pleas from Canadians to fix the justice system and clean up the streets?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, it is beyond reprehensible that a member of this House would accuse another member of caring more about criminals than Canadians. We should be able to work together to certainly punish wrongdoers, but also give law enforcement the tools that they need to keep their community safe. We have been giving tools to law enforcement so we don't only punish wrongdoers after a crime has been committed, but we prevent it in the first instance. I want to thank the law enforcement officials who've been in the news recently for the various busts that they've been responsible for bringing people to justice. I hope we can work together across partisan lines to advance important reforms to the criminal justice system later this year that will help further protect our communities.
Honourable member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
If the minister doesn't want to be criticized for caring more about criminals than victims, he should look at his own government's record. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals adjourned the Justice Committee meeting yesterday after 16 minutes to start their summer vacation without tabling or discussing a single motion or bill related to justice. Violent crime is up 50%. Opioid overdose is up 200%. 60%. Health officials in my riding are warning about carfentanil on the streets of Elgin County. People are dying, and those who are responsible are walking free. When will these Liberals table the crime bill and focus on that instead of their summer break?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know if the member's eyes betray him, but we are here and ready to work to advance reforms to protect our community. Yesterday, at the Justice Committee, though the accusation is there was an attempt to get home early for summer, what actually happened was a Conservative member was seeking to advance reforms that would have made it easier for people who've been charged with intimate partner violence to get out on bail. I think that is a bad idea, Mr. Speaker, and I'm willing to stay here and work to protect the victims of intimate partner violence and to advance reforms that will punish wrongdoers. Once again, it is not about caring more about criminals than Canadians, but it seems that member cares more about his social media clicks than he does about advancing.
The Honourable Member for Markham Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, extortion is up 357%. The Trudeau Liberals voted down our common-sense Conservative bill that enforces a 3-year mandatory minimum penalty for extortion and restores a 4-year minimum penalty for extortion involving a non-restricted firearm. Why? Because it was repealed by the Liberals in their Bill C-5. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister finally adopt the Conservative plan to crack down on violent extortion?
Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to take this opportunity to thank the members of the Toronto Police Service, Durham Police, and of course my friend who represents York Regional Police, and the OPP for their work to dismantle an organized crime group operating in the tow truck industry. Project Yankee has resulted in the seizure of firearms, vehicles, the arrest of 20 individuals, and more than 100 criminal charges, including multiple counts of conspiracy to commit murder. Another day, another criminal organization dismantled by law enforcement. Canada's new government will always be there to protect Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Lévis. 10 feminicides since the beginning of the year in Quebec. 5 in 5 weeks, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, a woman was killed in Vaudreuil-Dorion. She was in a situation where there was a toxic relationship, a violent relationship. The system abandoned her like so many others before her. When will the Prime Minister fix the errors of his predecessor, Mr. Trudeau, who contributed to leaving these women without protection?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, every Canadian should feel safe in their community, especially in their home. We will automatically revoke gun licenses for individuals convicted of intimate partner violence offences and those subject to protection orders. We are delivering on the recommendations made by the Mass Casualty Commission related to community safety, policing, and countering gender-based violence. The implementation of the National Action Plan to combat gender-based violence continues to support the work of building a Canada free of gender-based violence that supports victims, survivors, and their families, no matter where they live.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Lévis. The facts are the facts, Mr. Speaker. Under the Liberals, violence against women keeps going up. By maintaining Justin Trudeau's bills C-5 and C-75, this government is choosing to protect criminals instead of victims. In the meantime, women are living in fear. This government needs to look at itself and understand that it is responsible for the problem. When will the Prime Minister act, change these laws, and ensure the safety of all women in Canada, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Secretary of State for Nature. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for her question. I'm very emotional rising in the House on this subject. I'm standing here as part of this Liberal government because up until March this year, the Liberal government worked tirelessly to reduce the danger of firearms for Canadians by investing in that area and by banning assault weapons. There's more that needs to be done. We need to go as far as we can. That's what a government does when it fights crime. The Honourable Member for Selkirk
Interlake Eastman.
New reports from the Department of National Defense confirm today that less than 50% of the equipment used by our armed forces is operational. Only 46% of our Navy ships are seaworthy, and less than half of our land vehicles and aircraft needed by our Army and Air Force are even serviceable. While the Prime Minister makes grandiose claims of fixing our armed forces, the actual numbers tell a very different story. Money without results will not defend Canada's sovereignty. Why should anyone believe this Prime Minister when his own Defense Department contradicts his promises?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, here are the facts. In the last decade, we've tripled our defence spending. We're investing $72 billion through our defence policy update, $40 billion through NORAD modernization, $11 billion to train our next generation of aviators. We're procuring 200 new aircraft, 12 submarines, 6 Arctic and offshore patrol ships, 2 joint support ships, and so much more. Now more than ever, it's time to support and equip our forces with what they need to meet the challenges we face.
But let's see it happen, because so far it's all commitments, right?
Interlake Eastman.
Well, throwing money at the problem doesn't fix the problem. The facts show that the lost Liberal decade has reduced the capabilities needed by the armed forces to protect Canada today. Last year, the department said it would meet their targets this year, but now the Liberals have kicked the can down the road for another 7 years before the operations of the armed forces will be up to standard. Under the Liberal watch, our armed forces simply don't have the tools they need to do the job to deal with today's growing threats. The Prime Minister's talk is cheap. Where is the plan?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister announced $4.5 billion yesterday for our efforts in Ukraine.
That's right.
We've committed to reduce overall government spending by more than $15 billion, Mr. Speaker, while ensuring the services and the supports that Canadians rely on are there. We have exceptional expert staff dedicated to meeting our priorities, but we also sometimes rely on outside expertise. The member knows this, but we're committed to doing so in a transparent and fiscally responsible way. Any potential reductions, Mr. Speaker, in spending are being considered carefully, and minimizing the impact of military readiness is the driving force behind each decision.
The Honourable Member for Fleetwood Port Kells.
Mr. Speaker, 1 in 4 Canadians avoid visiting a dentist because of the cost and accessibility. Delaying preventive care can have wide-reaching impact, including more expensive treatments, worsening health outcome, and lost productivity. Can the Minister of Jobs and Family please update Canadians on our plan to deliver dental care to uninsured Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague from Fleetwood Port Kells for this important question. In the last elections, Canadians chose to place their vote with a party that knows that Canada is strong when we take care of each other. As of May 29, 2025, all eligible Canadians can now apply for the Canadian Dental Care Plan. And to date, Mr. Speaker, 4 million Canadians have been approved for coverage, and over 2 million have received care, including people in my community of Thunder Bay Superior North. So for more information, visit canada.ca/dental.
The Honourable Member for Okanagan Lake West South Kelowna.
Mr. Speaker, David Eby, the Premier of British Columbia, has doubled down and made the plan for BC Ferries to purchase 4 new vessels from a Chinese state-owned enterprise, his own. The Minister of Transport has said they will give BC Ferries $36 million this year. Will the Minister commit today that she will personally guarantee that not 1 cent of this transfer will go to this Chinese shipyard? Or will she stand up against David Eby's moral failure to support Canadian jobs in steel and shipbuilding and make this transfer conditional on BC Ferries to support jobs here in this great country?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I share the concern, the anger of other members of this House about the purchase of Chinese ferries. I have written to the province of BC to make clear that the federal government support for BC ferries, which is explicitly for operating support, must not be used for anything other than the operation of ferries. We owe it to the people of BC to support the operation of their ferries. We also owe it to the people of Canada to support Canadian shipbuilding, Canadian steel, and Canadian.
The honourable member for Okanagan Lake West South Kelowna.
So she's just got to write a check to them with no conditions, Mr. Speaker. So during the election, they were all elbows up and talking about Team Canada in the face of unjustified American tariffs on steel and aluminum. And I thought it was bad enough that the government has been elbows down since the election on protecting Canadian jobs. But now, does the government not see that by going along to get along with David Eby, that they're not on Team Canada, but on Team China?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, my answer was very clear, as have been my previous answers on this question. Federal government support goes only for operating costs. The federal government has no authority over BC ferries. However, Mr. Speaker, I want to object in the strongest possible terms about an insult to a premier of a Canadian province and a suggestion that a Canadian premier would act in the interests of China and not of Canada. All of our premiers are patriots, as are all members of this House.
The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
The BC Ferries deal didn't sink Canadian shipbuilders, Mr. Speaker. Ottawa did. Our shipbuilding unions say Canadian companies couldn't bid because federal policies stacked the deck against them. It's the federal government's job to set fair conditions so provinces can build at home. But all this government does is rearrange Liberal deck chairs. So, Mr. Speaker, what I want to know is this. Will the Liberals fix their broken policies, or are we going to just keep waving goodbye to good Canadian jobs from the dock?
The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, there seems to be some confusion among the Conservative MPs about what is provincial jurisdiction and what is federal jurisdiction. There is no such confusion on this side of the House. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to inform all members of this House that I have instructed all of the entities under control of transport to buy Canadian, and where that is not possible, to buy reciprocally from free trade partners who give Canada access to their government procurement. That's what we should all be doing at all levels.
The honourable member for Mississauga Lakeshore.
Earlier this week, Peel Police announced the outcome of Project Outsource, an 11th month project that has led to multiple arrests connected with extortions, shootings, and fraud. This affects my community and others. Can the Secretary of State for Combating Crime speak to the actions that the government is taking to crack down on organized crime, protect our streets, and keep Canadians safe?
The Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to thank the honourable member from Mississauga Lakeshore for his question, and to thank Chief Nishan Duriappa, who's here in Ottawa today to collaborate with our new government on public safety, and to thank the dedicated officers of Peel Police who, through Project Outsource, have dealt a significant blow against criminal networks responsible for intimidating and harming members of our community. The Strong Borders Act is giving police across the country the tools needed to replicate the success of Project Outsource. Organized crime should be on high alert. Canada's new government will do what it takes to dismantle their network, seize their guns, freeze their cash.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, as a retired police officer who has served on the front lines for nearly 3 decades, I have seen firsthand the damage violent criminals can do, especially when the justice system fails to hold them accountable. Today, extortion is up nearly 400%, and that is not a coincidence. The Liberals repealed mandatory minimums and gutted the Bail Reform Act. They even voted down a Conservative bill to restore serious penalties for extortion involving firearms. My former colleagues are working the front lines begging for help. Will the Prime Minister finally listen and adopt the Conservative plan to crack down on violence?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, first let me acknowledge and thank my honourable colleague for his years of service to promote public safety in this country. I will say, however, Mr. Speaker, that we are working alongside police forces and federations representing frontline members to understand the needs of frontline officers to ensure they have the resources to help communities keep communities safe. In addition, we are moving forward with a series of reforms that are going to strengthen sentencing regimes for violent repeat offenders, as well as addressing needs of the bail system, particularly targeting home invasions, human trafficking, auto theft, and other offences related to organized crime. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to work with that honourable member and benefit from his experience as we advance these important reforms.
Member for Courtenay, Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, Nova Scotia is ready to negotiate a pharmacare deal, but it's still waiting on an invitation from Health Canada. Yet the Prime Minister hasn't committed to expanding pharmacare for all Canadians. Access to essential medications shouldn't depend on where you live or your private coverage. With the job losses from Trump's trade war, the need for public medication coverage is clear. Will this Liberal government commit to delivering universal pharmacare for all Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the member from the opposition for his question, and I can assure him that we are working closely with the provinces and territories to give the best healthcare system possible to Canadians.
And that is the end of question period. I think 2 points of order. The honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I have in my hands, Mr. Speaker, a document entitled Canada's Electrical Vehicle Standard with a timeline where it says that the requirements increase to 1.
I don't think so. I don't think so. There's no unanimous consent. The honourable member for Okanagan, Lake West, South Kelowna.
The Minister of Transport sent you a letter today.
Sorry, we can't.
No, there you go. They turn it off. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the live stream. What a freaking shit show. Liberals are caught lying again. Who would have thunk it? And the Conservatives are trying to expose the hypocrisy. But more on that tomorrow with tomorrow's question period. Thank you so much for watching. I will do my best to be on time tomorrow, and I will do my best to schedule the live stream for the right time, not for a year from now, which I seem to keep doing. Yeah, hold me to account. Let's see if I get it right. I promise, maybe that'll be on time tomorrow. Peace and love. Enjoy the rest of your